So I challenged myself to make something completely outside of my comfort zone. Usually I create cozy, colorful journal covers with flowers and natural elements, things that can be perfectly imperfect. This time I decided to try my hand at a Lord of the Rings inspired dwarven architecture cover. Spoiler alert, it was harder than I expected. Let's get into it. I start with the basics, conditioning the clay and cutting out an A5 journal cover template. My first design idea seemed good in theory, but once I laid it all out, it just felt too flat. Dwarven architecture is supposed to have depth and grandeur, and this just wasn't giving me that. So I tried again. I spent quite a bit of time on the second version, adding pillars and building up the structure. I also added a large wooden door, which will be the focal point of the design, which actually turned out pretty well and ended up being one of the few things that survived to the final version. At this point, I was feeling pretty good about the design, so I baked everything and set it into place. I even started to paint this version, and then I looked at it properly and realized it still wasn't working. The proportions were off and the depth wasn't right, so I did what any reasonable person would do. I dismantled the whole thing and started over again. Third time's the charm, right? I went back to the drawing board, literally, and rethought the whole approach. One of the biggest challenges was creating a cobblestone pathway with proper perspective. To get that three-dimensional look, I built up a wedge shape using aluminium foil and then covered that with clay. This would give me the illusion of depth leading up to the doorway. Getting the cobblestone position just right took some fiddling. The perspective had to feel like you are looking up at the grand doors. Then came the tedious part, covering up all my previous attempts with fresh clay. Once I was happy with the placement, I textured the cobblestone path with a clay roller. In my opinion, this is where I would prefer working with natural elements because flowers doesn't need to be perfect. And this is where I didn't notice my camera slowly sliding down and filming my Christmas mug for 20 minutes. Great professional camera work over here. Camera repositioned, crisis averted, back to painting. The other thing that is also completely out of my comfort zone is the colors. Dwarven architecture is made of stone. Stone is predominantly grey. Not a lot of flowery colors and natural colors in grey stone. My remedy to that is that cobblestones does need to look ancient and well worn. So I started layering different shades of brown using the dry brush technique. Light layers building up that weathered texture gradually. Then I went in and painted some individual stones with slightly different tones. Some I left grey, some I made a slight reddish brown, others a darker tone. Real stonework has variation, and I wanted to capture that even if I couldn't capture the precision. Now here is where I need to admit defeat with the clay. These pillars and the crystals, yes, they are 3D printed. I tried making them from clay multiple times, but they just weren't coming out right with their clean lines and straight edges. Sometimes you just have to know when you have to bring in reinforcements. I added some metallic shimmer to the crystals to give them that magical glimmer effect. And finally gluing everything into place. And here is the final result. Is it perfect? No. Would a true Lord of the Rings fan spot the wonky bits? Probably, but it's done. Here's what I learned from the project. Just because you can make something doesn't mean you should. I'm so much more comfortable with organic, natural aesthetics where a wonky petal is charming rather than a mistake. Architectural precision, that is just not where my creative energy thrives. This cover took 3 attempts and it's taught me more about what I don't want to make than what I do. And honestly, that's valuable too. I'll stick to my cozy florals with imperfectly perfect flowers from now on. Thank you for watching me struggle through this. If you enjoyed the chaos, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see what I actually love making, check out some of the other videos. See you in the next one.